The elevator lurched to a sudden stop between the 42nd and 43rd floors of the Meridian Tower, trapping me inside with the last person I expected to encounter on a Tuesday morning. Emma Richardson, CEO of Richardson Industries, stood across from me in her pristine navy suit, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the emergency lighting as the main power flickered off. I'd seen her face on magazine covers and business news segments, but never imagined I'd be stuck in a metal box with one of the most powerful women in the city. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I pressed the emergency button and spoke into the intercom, my voice steady despite the circumstances. This is the elevator in the East Wing. We're stuck between floors 42 and 43. The crackling response informed us that a mechanical failure had occurred, and it would take at least 2 hours for the repair crew to reach us due to a citywide power grid issue affecting multiple buildings. Emma's composed exterior began showing cracks as she checked her phone repeatedly, finding no signal. "I have a board meeting in 30 minutes, she muttered, pacing the small space like a caged predator. "The Hartwell acquisition depends on this presentation." Her heels clicked against the elevator floor with increasing urgency. I leaned against the wall, observing her obvious distress while remaining calm. "Looks like neither of us is going anywhere soon," I said, adjusting the laptop bag slung over my shoulder. I'd been heading to the building's IT department for a routine system maintenance call, dressed in my usual khakis and polo shirt that marked me as clearly not belonging to the executive floors. She glanced at me for the first time, really looking rather than just acknowledging another person's presence. "You work here?" she asked, her tone carrying that particular inflection wealthy people used when trying to place someone in their mental hierarchy. "Ryan Mitchell," I said, extending my hand. "I run a small tech consulting business. Here to fix someone's server problems." She shook my hand briefly, her grip firm but distracted. "Emma Richardson," she replied automatically, though she clearly assumed I already knew who she was. The silence stretched between us as she continued her restless movement, while I remained still, my mind already shifting to problem-solving mode. 20 minutes passed before she finally stopped pacing and looked directly at me. "You seem remarkably calm for someone trapped in an elevator," she observed. "Panic doesn't fix mechanical problems," I replied with a slight smile. "Besides, I've been in worse situations." The comment seemed to catch her attention, momentarily pulling her focus away from her own crisis. Her blue eyes studied my face with the intensity of someone accustomed to reading people quickly and accurately. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows across Emma's face as she finally settled against the opposite wall, her perfect composure beginning to crack around the edges. I could see the weight of whatever pressure she carried in the slight tremor of her hands as she gripped her phone, willing it to find a signal that simply wasn't there. "What kind of worse situations?" she asked, her voice softer now, curiosity replacing the sharp edge of frustration. I considered my answer carefully, knowing that people like Emma Richardson typically didn't have much patience for other people's problems unless they served a purpose. "Military," I said simply. "Iraq. 2 tours. After that, most civilian emergencies feel pretty manageable." Her expression shifted slightly, surprise flickering across her features. She'd clearly placed me in some category that didn't include military service, probably assuming I'd lived my entire life fixing computers and troubleshooting software issues. The elevator shuddered slightly, causing her to grip the handrail. "Is that supposed to happen?" she asked, genuine concern creeping into her voice for the first time since we'd been trapped. I listened to the mechanical sounds filtering through the walls, drawing on experience I'd gained during countless emergency situations where staying calm meant the difference between life and death. "Just the building settling," I assured her. "These systems have multiple safety redundancies." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. "We're safer here than we would be taking the stairs during a power outage." She nodded, accepting my assessment with the same trust she probably placed in expensive consultants and expert advisors. "You have children?" she asked suddenly, noticing the small photo I'd pulled from my wallet while checking for my emergency contact card. The picture showed a grinning 8-year-old boy with sandy brown hair and a gap-toothed smile, wearing a Little League uniform and holding a trophy. "My son Jake," I said, pride evident in my voice. He's 8. This was taken after his team won the championship last month. I handed her the photo, watching her expression soften as she studied the image. For a moment, the powerful CEO disappeared, replaced by something more human and vulnerable. "He looks happy," she said quietly, her thumb tracing the edge of the photograph. "Really happy." There was something wistful in her tone, a longing that suggested her own childhood might not have included such uncomplicated joy. She handed the picture back carefully, as if it were made of something precious and fragile. "He is," I confirmed, tucking the photo away. "Kids have a way of finding happiness in simple things. Sometimes I think adults could learn something from that." Emma was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant as if she were seeing something far beyond the elevator walls. The intercom crackled to life again, informing us that the repair would take longer than expected due to the complexity of the electrical issues. Emma's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled completely as she slid down the wall to sit on the floor, her expensive suit wrinkling against the elevator's industrial carpeting. Emma's vulnerability in that moment revealed something I hadn't expected. The magazine covers and business profiles never showed this side of her, the human being beneath the corporate armor. She pulled her knees to her chest, an unconscious gesture that made her seem younger, less intimidating, more real. "I remember you," she said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. The admission hung between us in the dim emergency lighting, charged with implications I couldn't quite grasp. I searched my memory, trying to place where our paths might have crossed before this accidental encounter. "The community center," she continued, seeing my confusion. "3 months ago. You were there with your son for the father-son game night. I was volunteering for the charity auction, trying to—" She paused, choosing her words carefully, trying to connect with something real for once. The memory surfaced slowly. I'd been helping Jake with a building block competition when a woman in jeans and a simple sweater had knelt beside us, offering gentle encouragement when Jake's tower kept falling down. She'd seemed so different from the polished executive sitting across from me now, warmer and more approachable. I'd wondered then why someone like her would spend her Friday evening at a community center, instead of at whatever glamorous events wealthy people attended. "You helped him build that castle," I said, the pieces clicking together. "Jake talked about the nice lady for weeks afterward. He said you had really good ideas about making things strong." Emma smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her since we'd been trapped together. "He was so determined," she remembered. "Most kids would have given up after the 3rd collapse, but he kept trying. You didn't push him or take over the project. You just sat there patiently, letting him figure it out. That's rare these days." Her voice carried a note of respect that surprised me, as if patience was a quality she'd encountered too infrequently in her world. "He gets that stubbornness from me," I admitted. "Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a challenge. But I figure if he's going to be stubborn about something, building things is better than most alternatives." The conversation felt surreal, sharing parenting philosophies with one of the city's most powerful CEOs while trapped between floors in a disabled elevator. Emma's expression darkened suddenly, as if a shadow had passed across her thoughts. "I envy that," she said quietly. "The simplicity of it, the clarity, when your biggest worry is whether a block tower will stay standing." She was quiet for a long moment, and I sensed there was something deeper beneath her words, something that had nothing to do with architecture or children's games. "What's really wrong?" I asked, recognizing the signs of someone carrying a burden too heavy for polite conversation. "And don't tell me it's just about missing a board meeting. I've seen that look before, in places where people's lives depended on telling the truth." She studied my face in the dim light, weighing whether to trust a stranger with whatever was eating at her. The silence stretched until finally she spoke with the measured tone of someone who'd rehearsed these words, but never spoken them aloud. "My ex-husband is trying to destroy my company," she said. "Marcus Davidson. You might know the name if you follow business news. He owns Davidson Holdings, controls about 30% of the commercial real estate in this city." I didn't recognize the name, but I could hear the fear beneath her professional delivery. The same controlled terror I'd seen in soldiers who knew they were walking into an ambush. "The divorce was finalized 6 months ago," she continued, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "I thought it was over. Clean break, no children involved, everything divided according to the prenup we'd both signed. But Marcus doesn't accept defeat well. He's been systematically targeting my clients, my investors, my board members, spreading rumors about my mental state, my business decisions, my personal life. The picture she painted was one of psychological warfare conducted in boardrooms and country clubs, a campaign of destruction that used reputation and relationships as weapons. 3 of my largest clients have mysteriously canceled contracts in the past month, she explained. 2 key investors have pulled funding, citing concerns about company stability. My CFO resigned last week, claiming family obligations, but I know Marcus offered him a position that doubled his salary. What does he want? I asked, though I suspected the answer had more to do with power than money. Control, she said immediately. He wants to see me fail, to prove that I never deserved the success I built. When we met, I was already successful, already wealthy in my own right. But he convinced himself that he'd made me what I became, that without his connections and guidance, I'd be nothing. The divorce shattered that illusion, and now he's determined to make his version of reality come true. I thought about Jake, about the fierce protectiveness I felt whenever someone tried to undermine his confidence or make him doubt his own worth. The idea of someone systematically destroying another person's life out of pure spite triggered a familiar anger. The same cold fury I'd felt overseas when faced with people who hurt others simply because they could. The Hartwell acquisition I mentioned, Emma continued. It's not just another business deal. It's my company's lifeline. If this falls through, I'll have to start laying off employees, selling assets, maybe even consider bankruptcy. Marcus knows this. He's been working behind the scenes to sabotage the deal, probably feeding Hartwell's board negative information about my company's financial stability. That's why the meeting today was so important, I said, understanding now why she'd been so distressed about the delay. She nodded, checking her phone again out of habit even though we both knew it was useless. The presentation I was supposed to give contains proprietary financial data that could save everything, she explained. Market analysis, growth projections, strategic partnerships that Marcus doesn't know about. If I can get Hartwell to see the real numbers, the truth about what my company represents, they'll sign the deal. But if this meeting doesn't happen, if they think I'm unreliable or unprofessional, she trailed off, the implications clear. There has to be another way, I said. Reschedule the meeting, send the information electronically, have someone else present for you. But even as I spoke, I could see from her expression that she'd already considered and rejected these options. Marcus has people everywhere, she said bitterly. Law firms, investment banks, even some of my own employees. Information gets leaked. Meetings get sabotaged. Alternative plans somehow fall apart at the last minute. He's been planning this campaign for months, maybe longer. Every contingency I can think of, he's probably anticipated. The elevator shuddered again, reminding us of our physical confinement. But the real trap Emma faced was far more complex and inescapable. The worst part, she continued, is that he's not breaking any laws. Everything he's doing falls into gray areas of business competition. Spreading concerns about a competitor's stability, offering better terms to lure away clients, hiring away key personnel with attractive packages. On paper, it all looks like legitimate business practices. But you know better, I said, recognizing the particular helplessness that came from being attacked by someone who understood exactly how to stay within legal boundaries while inflicting maximum damage. I know better, she confirmed. But knowing and proving are different things, and even if I could prove it, the damage would already be done. Reputation in business is like glass. Once it's broken, it never quite fits back together the same way. Her voice carried the weight of someone who'd watched their life's work crumble, despite their best efforts to hold it together. What about fighting back? I asked. Surely someone with your resources has options for dealing with this kind of harassment. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. I've tried. Private investigators, legal teams, even hiring a crisis management firm. But Marcus has advantages I can't match. His family has been connected to this city's power structure for 3 generations. His father serves on the boards of half the major banks. His brother is a federal prosecutor. His golf partner is the judge who would likely hear any lawsuit I might file. The scope of Marcus Davidson's influence painted a picture of systemic corruption that went far beyond personal vindictiveness. "He doesn't just want to destroy my business," Emma continued. "He wants to erase me completely. Make it so that no one in this industry will work with me, invest in me, or trust me with their money. He wants to turn me into a cautionary tale about what happens to women who think they can compete with men like him." I felt something shift inside me, a recognition of the kind of enemy Emma was facing. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "Intensely for about 4 months," she replied. "But looking back, I can see signs that he was laying groundwork, even before the divorce was finalized. Casual conversations where he'd express concerns about my decision-making, innocent questions about my mental health after stressful days, suggestions that I might benefit from taking some time away from the company to focus on my emotional well-being." The calculated nature of Marcus's campaign was becoming clear, a long-term strategy designed to plant seeds of doubt that would grow into full-scale character assassination. "He's very good at making his attacks seem like concern," Emma said. "When clients call to cancel contracts, they phrase it as giving me space to deal with personal issues. When investors withdraw funding, they frame it as not wanting to add pressure during my difficult time. It's almost impossible to argue against that kind of false sympathy without sounding defensive or unstable, which is exactly what he wants," quote, I observed, understanding the psychological trap Marcus had constructed. "Exactly," she confirmed. "Every response I make can be twisted into evidence of the very instability he's claiming. If I stay calm and professional, I'm being cold and disconnected from reality. If I show any emotion, I'm proving his point about my mental state. If I fight back aggressively, I'm demonstrating the kind of erratic behavior that makes me unsuitable for leadership." The sophistication of the attack was impressive in its cruelty, designed to make any defense into another form of self-destruction. "The Hartwell deal represents my last real chance to break out of this cycle," Emma continued. "If I can secure that partnership, it will provide enough financial stability and credibility to weather Marcus's campaign. But if it falls through—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. "Then he wins," I said quietly, understanding now why she'd been so desperate about the missed meeting, why being trapped in this elevator represented more than just an inconvenience. It was potentially the final straw that would allow Marcus Davidson to claim victory in his campaign of destruction. Emma nodded, her composure finally cracking as the full weight of her situation became clear. "I've spent 15 years building my company from nothing," she whispered. 15 years of 18-hour days, of proving myself in rooms full of men who thought I was there to serve coffee, of making decisions that affected hundreds of people's livelihoods. And now, one vindictive man with the right connections might be able to erase all of it." The elevator around us suddenly felt less like a temporary inconvenience and more like a metaphor for the trap Marcus had constructed around Emma's entire life. We were both stuck, but her confinement extended far beyond these metal walls. The emergency intercom crackled to life again, but this time the voice belonged to building security rather than maintenance. "Ms. Richardson, we have a Marcus Davidson here in the lobby requesting immediate access to speak with you. He says it's urgent regarding a family emergency." Emma's face went white, her hands trembling as she stared at the intercom speaker. "He found me," she whispered. "Even here, even trapped in an elevator, he found me." The fear in her voice was raw and immediate, transforming her from a confident CEO back into someone being hunted. I stood up, moving closer to the intercom panel. "Tell Mr. Davidson that Ms. Richardson is unavailable due to the elevator malfunction," I said clearly into the speaker. "Building maintenance estimates at least another hour before repairs are complete." "Sir, who is this?" the security guard's voice crackled back. "Mr. Davidson is insisting this is a family emergency and demands immediate contact. This is Ryan Mitchell. I'm a witness to Ms. Richardson's current situation and can confirm she's unable to take any meetings at this time." I kept my voice steady and professional, drawing on the same tone I'd used to de-escalate situations overseas when calm authority could mean the difference between peace and violence. Emma grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "You don't understand what you're doing," she hissed. "He'll turn this against me somehow. He'll claim I'm hiding from him, avoiding my responsibilities, using building malfunctions as excuses." He'll twist this into another piece of evidence for whatever narrative he's building. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number, but something told me to answer it. "Ryan Mitchell," I said into the phone. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Marcus Davidson. I believe you're currently with my ex-wife, Emma Richardson." The voice was smooth, cultured, carrying the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. "I'm calling because there's been a family emergency involving Emma's elderly mother. She's been taken to the hospital, and I need to reach Emma immediately." I looked at Emma, who was shaking her head frantically while mouthing the word no over and over. Her mother had died 2 years ago, something Marcus obviously knew. This was just another manipulation, another chess move in his ongoing campaign. "I'm sorry to hear about the emergency," I said carefully. "But Ms. Richardson is genuinely unable to take calls at the moment due to circumstances beyond her control." "Mr. Mitchell, I've done some quick research on you while standing here in the lobby," Marcus continued, his tone shifting to something more predatory. "Single father, military background, small business owner. You seem like a decent man who wouldn't want to interfere in family matters. I'm sure you understand how important it is for Emma to know about her mother's condition." The lie was so smoothly delivered, so wrapped in false concern, that I could see how someone unfamiliar with the situation might be convinced. "What I understand," I replied, "is that Ms. Richardson is currently safe and will remain so until she chooses otherwise." Silence on the line for a moment, then Marcus's voice returned, colder now. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm trying to be reasonable here, but you're putting yourself in a very precarious position. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? I have connections throughout this city. I can make your life very complicated with a few phone calls." "Is that a threat, Mr. Davidson?" I asked, my own voice hardening. Emma was watching me with wide eyes, as if she couldn't believe someone was actually standing up to Marcus directly. "It's a statement of fact," Marcus replied smoothly. "Your little IT consulting business, for instance. I notice you do work for several companies in this building. It would be unfortunate if concerns were raised about your reliability, your professionalism, your ability to handle sensitive client information. Word travels fast in business circles." I felt the familiar cold anger that had served me well in combat situations, the kind of focused rage that made thinking clearer rather than cloudier. "Mr. Davidson, let me share a statement of fact with you. I spent 2 tours in Iraq dealing with people who thought intimidation was a substitute for character. I'm not impressed by threats from men who hide behind lawyers and connections while terrorizing women." "Terrorizing?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Emma has obviously filled your head with her version of events. Has she mentioned her history of mental instability, the medication she's supposed to be taking, the concerns her own board members have expressed about her decision-making capabilities?" "What I know," I said firmly, "is that a powerful man is using his influence to systematically destroy a woman's life and career because she had the audacity to divorce him. What I know is that you're currently lying about a family emergency involving a woman who died 2 years ago. What I know is that you tracked her down to this building and are now trying to manipulate a stranger into giving you access to someone who clearly doesn't want to see you." Another pause, longer this time. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had lost all pretense of civility. "You have no idea what you've just done, Mr. Mitchell. No idea at all." The line went dead. Emma was staring at me with a mixture of gratitude and terror. "He's not bluffing about being able to hurt your business," she said quietly. "Marcus has destroyed people for much less than what you just did. Good people who were just trying to help." "Let him try," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. "I've been building my reputation in this city for 8 years, one satisfied client at a time. If it can be destroyed by one vindictive man making phone calls, then maybe it wasn't as solid as I thought." The intercom crackled again. "Ms. Richardson, Mr. Davidson is demanding that building security override the elevator controls and extract you immediately. He's claiming this is a mental health emergency, and he has legal authority to intervene." Emma buried her face in her hands. "He's probably got some kind of forged documentation. He has people who can create anything he needs. If they force the elevator open, if he gets to me here." She trailed off, but I could see her imagining scenarios that went far beyond simple confrontation. "Can he actually do that?" I asked. "Override building security? Force them to extract you? If he's convincing enough, If he has the right paperwork. If he throws around enough money and influence. Emma nodded miserably. Building security works for the property management company, and Marcus probably knows someone who has leverage over their contracts. I studied the elevator control panel, drawing on knowledge I'd gained from years of troubleshooting electrical systems. Not if the elevator isn't safe to operate, I said, reaching for the emergency stop switch. Mechanical failures can be unpredictable. Sometimes they get worse before they get better. "What are you doing?" Emma asked as I carefully manipulated several switches on the control panel. "Buying us time," I replied, creating a series of system conflicts that would make any rescue attempt far more complicated and time-consuming. "And making sure that when this elevator finally opens, it's on our terms, not his." My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Checked your client references." Amazing how quickly people change their minds about service providers when presented with concerning information. "Might want to check your voicemail when you get signal back." I showed the message to Emma, who read it with growing despair. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted to drag someone else into this. Marcus ruins everything he touches. Everyone who tries to help. He can hurt my business," I admitted, "but he can't touch what matters most. Jake is safe, he's happy, and no amount of corporate manipulation can change that. Sometimes you have to decide what you're willing to lose in order to protect what you can't afford to lose." Emma looked at me with something approaching wonder. "Why are you doing this? You barely know me. You have nothing to gain and everything to lose." I thought about Jake, about the values I wanted to teach him, about the kind of man I wanted him to become. "Because it's right," I said simply. "Because someone has to stand up to people like Marcus, and if good people don't do it, who will?" The building's emergency lighting flickered, and we heard the distant sound of multiple vehicles arriving outside. Through the small gap in the elevator doors, emergency lights were visible, suggesting Marcus had escalated to involving first responders in his manipulation. "Fire department," Emma said, recognizing the pattern of lights. "He's probably told them I'm having a medical emergency, that I need immediate extraction. They'll have the tools and authority to override any building security protocols. Then we need to be ready to tell our side of the story the moment those doors open," I said. "No matter what documentation Marcus has, no matter what lies he's told them, we tell the truth clearly and consistently." Emma straightened her shoulders, and I could see the executive returning, the woman who'd built a company from nothing and survived in a male-dominated industry through intelligence and determination. "Ryan," she said formally, "I need you to understand something. When those doors open, Marcus is going to offer you money to walk away, probably a substantial amount. He'll frame it as compensation for your time and trouble, payment for services rendered, whatever makes it sound legitimate." "I'm not interested in his money," I said. "I know," she replied. "That's why I'm asking you to prove it. When he makes that offer, and he will, I need you to walk away. Don't take the money, don't negotiate, just leave. It's the only way to show him and everyone watching that your help wasn't transactional." I understood what she was asking. In a world where Marcus believed everything had a price, the one thing that would truly defeat him was encountering something that couldn't be bought. "You want me to fail his test," I said. "I want you to pass mine," she corrected. "Because if you can walk away from his money, if you can prove that your integrity isn't for sale, then maybe there's hope that not everyone in this world operates according to his rules." The sound of power tools echoed from above as the fire department began the process of extracting us from our metal prison. Whatever happened next, I knew that the choice I made in the next few minutes would define not just how this situation resolved, but what kind of example I set for my son about standing up for what's right, regardless of the cost. The elevator doors finally opened with a mechanical groan, revealing a small army of first responders led by 2 paramedics with emergency equipment. Behind them stood Marcus Davidson, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of commanding presence that came from a lifetime of having money open doors and silence objections. "Emma, thank God," Marcus said, pushing past the paramedics with practiced concern. "When I heard about the elevator malfunction, I was terrified something had happened to you. Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" His performance was flawless, the worried ex-husband who'd rushed to help despite their personal differences. I'm fine, Marcus, Emma replied coldly, stepping out of the elevator with dignity intact. There was no emergency, no medical situation, and certainly no need for you to involve first responders in a routine building maintenance issue. The lead paramedic looked confused, glancing between Emma's obvious health and Marcus's concerned expression. Sir, you reported a woman having panic attacks and possible cardiac symptoms due to claustrophobia, the paramedic said to Marcus. Are you certain this is the same individual? My ex-wife sometimes downplays her medical conditions, Marcus said smoothly. She's been under tremendous stress lately, experiencing episodes of anxiety and dissociation. I was concerned that being trapped in a confined space might trigger a severe reaction. I watched Emma's jaw tighten as Marcus deployed his standard tactic of painting her as mentally unstable while positioning himself as the caring, responsible party. The paramedics looked uncertain, caught between conflicting information from two well-dressed, articulate individuals. Ms. Richardson appears alert and oriented, the second paramedic observed, checking her pulse and examining her eyes with a small flashlight. Heart rate is slightly elevated, which is normal given the circumstances, but I see no signs of distress or medical emergency. Of course she seems fine now, Marcus continued. The episode has passed, but I have documentation of her ongoing mental health struggles, medical records, that show a pattern of denial regarding her condition. He reached into his briefcase, producing what appeared to be official medical documents. Those are forgeries, Emma said firmly. I've never been treated for any of the conditions listed in whatever papers you're showing them. This man is my ex-husband, who has been systematically harassing me for months. The lead paramedic looked increasingly uncomfortable, recognizing that he'd been drawn into a domestic dispute, rather than a medical emergency. Ma'am, are you requesting that we evaluate your mental or physical condition? He asked Emma directly. I am not, Emma replied clearly. I'm requesting that these gentlemen document that this was a false emergency call that tied up city resources unnecessarily. The paramedic nodded, making notes on his clipboard while shooting disapproving glances at Marcus. Marcus's expression hardened almost imperceptibly as his medical emergency strategy collapsed. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Emma, he said, his tone shifting to something more authoritative. There are business matters that require immediate attention, and I'm sure these first responders have more important calls to attend to. I have nothing to discuss with you, Emma replied. Our divorce is final, our business relationship is terminated, and any future communication should go through my attorney. Actually, Marcus said, turning his attention to me for the first time, I believe I should thank Mr. Mitchell here for keeping Emma company during this ordeal. His smile was predatory as he sized me up, clearly having researched everything he could discover about my background in the past 2 hours. Ryan Mitchell, correct? Small business owner, IT consulting, single father. Marcus extended his hand, which I reluctantly shook. His grip was firm, designed to convey power and control. I understand you've been very helpful to Emma during this stressful situation. I did what anyone would do, I replied carefully, sensing the trap being constructed around me. Modest and principled, Marcus said approvingly. I respect that. In fact, I'd like to express my gratitude more tangibly. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope, thick with what were obviously cash bills. Emergency situations like this can be disruptive to business schedules. I'd like to compensate you for your time and any inconvenience this may have caused. I looked at the envelope, then at Emma, who was watching me with intense focus. This was the moment she'd warned me about, the test that would determine everything that followed. The money would probably solve several immediate problems in my life, cover Jake's upcoming school expenses, maybe even allow me to upgrade some of my business equipment. I appreciate the gesture, I said, keeping my voice steady, but I don't need compensation for doing the right thing. I stepped back from Marcus, making it clear I had no intention of accepting the envelope. Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly, as if surprised by my refusal. Mr. Mitchell, I've done some research on your business. Small operation, competitive market, raising a child on a single income. This would help, wouldn't it? He held the envelope closer, and I could see it contained more money than I typically made in a month. My business is doing fine, I lied smoothly. And my son learns more from watching me do the right thing than he would from any amount of money earned the wrong way." "The wrong way?" Marcus's voice took on a sharper edge. "I'm offering legitimate compensation for services rendered. There's nothing wrong about accepting payment for helping someone in distress." "Except that I didn't help her for payment," I replied. "I helped her because she needed help. Those are two completely different things." Emma's expression had shifted from tense worry to something approaching amazement. She was watching me refuse what was clearly a substantial sum of money. Money that Marcus had obviously calculated would be difficult for someone in my position to turn down. $10,000, Marcus said bluntly, abandoning subtlety. Cash, no strings attached, no questions asked. Simply my way of saying thank you for keeping Emma safe during a difficult situation. The amount was staggering, representing months of income for my small business. I thought about Jake's college fund, about the repairs needed on our apartment, about the business loan payment that was due next week. Then I thought about what accepting that money would mean, what it would say about my character and my motivations. "Mr. Davidson," I said clearly, making sure the remaining first responders could hear me, "I'm not interested in your money. I helped Ms. Richardson because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected payment. And frankly, the fact that you think everything has a price tells me more about you than I needed to know." Marcus's mask of civility finally slipped completely. "You're making a mistake, Mitchell, a very expensive mistake. Do you have any idea how many businesses in this city depend on my goodwill? How many contracts I influence? How many people I employ?" "Are you threatening me again?" I asked calmly. The lead paramedic was now paying close attention to our conversation, his expression growing more concerned as Marcus's true nature became apparent. "I'm explaining reality," Marcus snarled. "You can't afford to make an enemy of me. Your little computer business, your son's future, your entire life in this city, it all depends on the goodwill of people like me. Take the money, walk away, and pretend this never happened." "Or what?" I challenged. "You'll use your connections to destroy my reputation? Pressure my clients to cancel contracts? Spread lies about my professional competence? Because those threats sound familiar. I think you've used them before." The paramedic was now actively taking notes, recognizing that he was witnessing something that went far beyond a simple domestic dispute. Marcus noticed the attention and tried to regain his composure, but the damage was done. "I think we're finished here," Emma said firmly. "Ryan, thank you for everything you've done. I won't forget it." She moved toward the exit, clearly expecting me to follow, but Marcus stepped into our path. "This isn't over," he said quietly, his voice carrying a cold promise. "Either of you. Emma, you still have that board meeting to reschedule, assuming Hartwell Industries is still interested after hearing about your erratic behavior and inability to maintain professional commitments. And Mr. Mitchell, I'd start updating your resume if I were you." "Actually," came a new voice from behind Marcus, "I think this is very much over." We all turned to see a distinguished older man in an expensive suit approaching with several other professional-looking individuals. "My name is James Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Industries. I was in the building for our scheduled meeting when I heard about the elevator situation." Emma's face went pale. "Mr. Hartwell, I can explain about the meeting. The elevator malfunction was completely beyond my control, and I know how important today's presentation was for both our companies." "Please don't apologize," Hartwell said with a slight smile. "I've been standing here for the past 10 minutes listening to this entire conversation. It's been quite educational." He looked directly at Marcus, his expression hardening. "Mr. Davidson, your reputation in certain business circles has been a topic of concern for some time. But hearing you threaten and attempt to bribe people in person has been particularly illuminating." Marcus's face had gone red with rage and embarrassment. "Mr. Hartwell, I can assure you that whatever you think you heard—" "I heard a man trying to buy silence after making threats," Hartwell interrupted. "I heard someone attempting to manipulate emergency services for personal gain. Most importantly, I heard Ms. Richardson handle an impossible situation with grace and dignity, while watching a complete stranger demonstrate the kind of character that's becoming increasingly rare in business." He turned to Emma with genuine respect. "Ms. Richardson, I'd like to reschedule our meeting for tomorrow morning, if that works for your schedule." After what I've witnessed today, I'm even more convinced that Hartwell Industries would benefit from a partnership with someone of your integrity and judgment. Emma could barely speak. Tomorrow morning would be perfect, she managed. Hartwell nodded, then looked at me with interest. Mr. Mitchell, is it? I couldn't help but overhear that you run an IT consulting business. Hartwell Industries is always looking for reliable technology partners who share our values. Perhaps you'd be interested in discussing some opportunities? Before I could respond, Marcus exploded. This is ridiculous. You're all being manipulated by a woman with documented mental health issues and a man who's clearly angling for financial gain. I have lawyers, I have documentation, I have witnesses who will testify to Emma's instability. What you have, said the lead paramedic, closing his notebook with a snap, is a documented false emergency call that wasted city resources and potentially endangered people who might have actually needed help. I'll be filing a report about this incident with the appropriate authorities. Security guards from the building had also arrived, apparently summoned by the commotion. Mr. Davidson. One of them said professionally, building management has asked me to inform you that you're no longer welcome on these premises. If you attempt to enter the building again, you'll be arrested for trespassing. Marcus looked around at the circle of hostile faces, realizing that his usual tactics of intimidation and bribery had not only failed, but had been witnessed by exactly the wrong people. His carefully constructed facade had crumbled in public, in front of witnesses who had power and influence of their own. This isn't over, he repeated, but the words carried no weight now. He was a man whose primary weapons had been neutralized, whose reputation was now in question among the very people whose respect he needed to maintain his power. As Marcus stormed away, followed by building security to ensure he actually left, Emma turned to me with tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "You proved that not everyone has a price. You proved that someone could stand up to him and survive." "We proved it," I corrected. "You're the one who had the courage to trust a stranger with the truth. You're the one who endured months of harassment without breaking. All I did was refuse to be bought." Mr. Hartwell was watching this exchange with obvious approval. "If you'll excuse me," he said, "I need to make some phone calls. Word travels fast in business circles, and I suspect Mr. Davidson's behavior today will be of interest to several people I know." He paused, looking directly at Emma. "Ms. Richardson, I think you'll find that Marcus Davidson's influence in this city has been significantly diminished as of today. People don't like being associated with bullies, especially bullies who get caught in the act." As the crowd dispersed and normalcy returned to the building lobby, Emma and I found ourselves alone for the first time since the elevator doors had opened. The crisis was over, the immediate threat neutralized, but I could see in her eyes that she was still processing everything that had happened. "The money," she said quietly. "You really didn't take it, even when he offered $10,000, even knowing what refusing might cost you." "Emma," I said gently, "the most valuable thing I own is my son's respect. No amount of money is worth losing that." She smiled then, the first completely genuine, unguarded smile I'd seen from her. It transformed her face, revealing the woman she might have been if Marcus Davidson had never entered her life. "I think Jake is very lucky to have you as a father," she said. "And I think the business world is lucky to have you fighting the good fight," I replied. Marcus Davidson picked the wrong person to underestimate. As we walked toward the building exit together, I realized that sometimes the most important battles were fought not with weapons or legal documents, but with simple choices about who we decided to be when nobody was watching. Today we'd both chosen to be better than the world expected us to be, and that, more than any amount of money, was worth everything. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of the same building where everything had changed, but this time I was carrying blueprints instead of a laptop bag. Emma's company had not only survived Marcus's campaign, but had thrived in ways that surprised everyone, including herself. The Hartwell partnership had opened doors she never expected, and her reputation had been restored stronger than before. Jake bounced beside me, excited about visiting Emma's new office space. She'd expanded to the entire 45th floor, and today she was personally showing us the technology center that my consulting firm had designed for her company. What had started as a chance encounter in a broken elevator had evolved into a professional partnership built on mutual respect and shared values. "Dad, is Ms. Emma really going to let me see the computers that run the whole building?" Jake asked for the third time since we'd entered the lobby. His enthusiasm was infectious, reminding me why I'd fought so hard to protect what mattered most. "She promised you could see everything," I confirmed, watching my son's face light up with anticipation. Emma had become a regular part of our lives, attending Jake's baseball games and joining us for weekend adventures around the city. Nothing romantic had developed between us yet, but there was an understanding that something good was growing slowly and naturally. The elevator ride to the 45th floor was peaceful now, no emergency stops or unexpected confrontations. When the doors opened, Emma was waiting for us in a crisp white blouse and navy skirt, her hair pulled back in a professional style, but her smile was warm and genuine. "Jake, are you ready for the grand tour?" she asked, extending her hand to my son, who took it eagerly. As we walked through the modern office space, Emma explained how each department worked, answering Jake's endless questions with patience and detail that impressed me more each time I witnessed it. The technology center was my pride and joy, a state-of-the-art facility that showcased everything my small company had learned about integrating security, efficiency, and user accessibility. Emma had given me complete creative control over the project, trusting my expertise without micromanaging or second-guessing my decisions. "This is incredible, Dad," Jake whispered as we stood in the main server room surrounded by quietly humming equipment that managed data for hundreds of employees. "You built all this?" "We built it together," I corrected, gesturing to the small team of technicians who worked for my expanded consulting firm. "Good things happen when people trust each other and work toward the same goals." Emma squeezed my shoulder gently, a gesture of appreciation that spoke volumes about how far we'd both come since that day trapped between floors. She'd testified in the investigation that followed Marcus's public meltdown, helping to expose a pattern of business intimidation that had affected dozens of other companies. Marcus himself was facing federal charges and had lost most of his political connections when his methods became public knowledge. "Ryan, there's something I wanted to discuss with you," Emma said as Jake became absorbed in watching the data flow displays. "Hartwell Industries has recommended my company for a major government contract. If we get it, I'll need to expand the technology infrastructure significantly." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the possibilities. "How significantly?" "Significantly enough that I'd want to offer your firm an exclusive partnership agreement," she said with a smile. "Full-time contract, guaranteed work for the next 5 years, enough to let you hire a proper staff and maybe even take some real vacations." The offer was extraordinary, the kind of opportunity that could transform my small operation into a legitimate regional player. But more than the professional implications, it represented something deeper. Proof that integrity and character still mattered in a world that often seemed to reward the opposite. "I'll need to review the details," I said diplomatically, though we both knew I'd accept. "Of course," Emma replied. "Take all the time you need. We're not going anywhere." As we prepared to leave, Jake hugged Emma goodbye with the unself-conscious affection of a child who'd found another trusted adult in his life. Watching them together, I realized that the best outcomes often came from the simplest choices, from deciding to help someone who needed it without calculating the personal cost. "Dad," Jake said as we walked back to the elevator, "do you think Ms. Emma will come to my soccer game this weekend? I think she'd be disappointed if you didn't invite her." I replied, knowing that Emma had already marked the date on her calendar. The elevator arrived promptly this time, no mechanical failures or unexpected delays. As we descended toward the lobby and our normal life, I reflected on how much had changed since that winter day when a broken elevator had brought two strangers together in crisis. Sometimes the most important decisions we make happen in moments we never see coming, tested by circumstances we never expected to face. But if we choose correctly, if we prioritize character over convenience and integrity over immediate gain, those moments can become the foundation for something beautiful and lasting. The elevator doors opened onto the bright lobby, and Jake ran ahead toward our car, already planning what he'd tell his friends about the amazing computer room he'd seen. I followed more slowly, grateful for the reminder that the best victories weren't the ones that made headlines, but the ones that let you sleep peacefully, knowing you'd done right by the people who mattered most. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.